So today we're going to tackle a really fascinating puzzle that sits right at the heart of the Quran. When a verse says God did something, but it's clear a human being actually performed the action, who's really responsible? It's a question that gets to the very core of faith, free will, and divine power. And it really all boils down to verses like this one. It's from a chapter that's talking to believers after a battle, and it says, "You did not throw, God did." I mean, that is direct, powerful, and, let's be real, a pretty paradoxical statement. This is the central mystery we're going to try and unravel today. Right? Because that's the first thing you think of, isn't it? We know a human archer pulled back the string and let that arrow fly. So how can both of these things be true at the same time? And this isn't just some ancient riddle. It's a profound question about the very nature of action itself. So to get to the bottom of this, you've got two main paths people have taken. You can read these verses literally, as direct, almost magical interventions by God, or you can read them metaphorically, as something much more woven into our own human experience. Okay, let's break this down a bit. On one hand, the literal view says God's hand is literally physically acting in the world, a miracle that just overrides whatever humans are doing. But the metaphorical view, which is what we're really going to dig into, argues for something else entirely, that God's guidance is made real through our actions. It's not about replacing human effort, it's about empowering it with divine principles. All right, let's dive into some specific examples from the text. Theory is one thing, but seeing how this metaphorical lens actually works in different situations is where it gets really cool. We're going to look at a scribe, a battle, and even a promise of angels. Our first case study is all about financial transactions. When someone is drawing up a loan agreement, the Quran says the scribe should write as God has taught him. Seems pretty simple on the surface, but the big question is, what does teaching really mean here? Now, if you take this literally, it kind of suggests that God personally instructed every single scribe on how to form letters and write words. But that would mean God has to constantly intervene in this kind of random way, which really goes against a core Quranic idea of a consistent, unchanging system of laws that govern the universe. This is where the metaphorical view just flips the whole thing on its head. The teaching isn't about the mechanics of writing, it's all about the ethics driving the action. The idea is that God has taught humanity these universal principles of justice and fairness. So the scribe's duty isn't just mechanical, it's moral. It's to make sure that contract is fair and honest, guided by those divine laws. Okay, so that brings us right back to where we started, to our original puzzle. In the middle of a battle, the Quran again gives the credit for the action and the victory to God, even though we know believers were the ones physically out there fighting. And this is where the tension gets super clear. Right before this verse, the Quran gives actual strategic commands. Never turn your backs unless it's part of a tactic. I mean, think about it. If God's going to do it all with a miracle, why even bother telling people how to fight? It just doesn't add up. And this is the key. This interpretation doesn't see a paradox at all. It sees a partnership. Humans provide the action, the physical effort, the strategy, the courage, and God provides the unchanging system in which that action can actually succeed, like the laws of physics that make the arrow fly straight, or the psychological principles that give one side a morale boost and break the other's will. Human agency and divine law working together. All right, for our third key study, let's talk about a number, 5,000. This is how many angels the Quran says God could send to help believers in their fight, a promise made when they were a small, outnumbered group facing a huge enemy. And again, we run into the same logical question. If you have 5,000 invincible, supernatural beings physically fighting on the battlefield, the human part of it, their fear, their strategy, their sacrifice, it all becomes totally redundant. Seriously, why would you need a single soldier if you've got an invincible angel right there beside you? But then, and this is amazing, the Quran basically hands us the key to understanding this. Right after mentioning the angels, the text says this whole thing was made as an allegory, a symbolic story to comfort them and bring good news. It's literally telling us, hey, this is a metaphor. So what are the angels a metaphor for? They represent those inner strengths, those psychological forces that God inspires in people who are striving for something just. So angelic support isn't about physical beings. It's that feeling of deep calm, of unshakable courage and resolve that lets a small group overcome incredible odds. Okay, to really nail this concept down, let's pull a great analogy right from the natural world. It makes this whole idea of God's guidance working through established systems crystal clear. But first, to get the analogy, you need to know this one really important concept, Sunnat Allah. It means the unchanging law of God. This is the core idea that the universe runs on consistent, reliable principles that God set up, from physics to morality. It's a universe of cause and effect, not constant, random, magical interventions. With that in mind, listen to this verse about the bee. The Quran tells the bee to follow the ways that your Lord has made easy for you. I mean, we know God isn't on a walkie-talkie with every bee, giving it turn-by-turn directions, so what's going on here? The teaching here is the incredible, innate, biological blueprint God built into the bee. Its instincts, its navigation skills, its ability to build a honeycomb. God's guidance works through this perfect, pre-installed natural law. The bee is just this perfect little model for how divine will can be embedded deep within creation instead of being forced on it moment by moment. Okay, so why does any of this matter? What's the big takeaway here? This isn't just some abstract debate for theologians. This interpretation has huge, practical implications for how faith is lived today. It really transforms faith from something passive into an active, hands-on responsibility. Think about it. If God's plan unfolds through what we do, then suddenly working for social justice becomes a theological act. Taking care of the environment, building strong communities, even just improving yourself, they all become meaningful acts of faith. Every ethical choice we make becomes a chance to bring these divine principles to life. And this connects perfectly to the Quranic idea of Khalifah, which is humanity's role as stewards or caretakers on earth. We're entrusted with this responsibility to build a just and compassionate world. This way of thinking really empowers that role, making our lives the very stage where divine principles are put into action by our own choices. So, in the end, this is the beautiful synthesis, right? Divine wisdom and human effort aren't fighting each other. They're two sides of the same coin. They're inseparable partners. Our achievements, whether it's a just contract, an act of courage, or a stronger community, are attributed to God because they reflect the perfect system and the moral guidance He set up for us to use. And that's the thought I want to leave you with. If our efforts, our choices, and our struggles are the very way a divine purpose unfolds in the world, that changes everything. It shifts faith away from just waiting around for a miracle and turns it into a powerful call for meaningful action. So the real question it leaves us with is this: what does that ask of us right here today?